Pinocchio, a Playmobil Fairy Tale Story by My Playmobil Empire. Once upon a time, in the vast lands of Arabia, there was a handsome and talented prince whose name was Pinocchio. One sunny afternoon, Pinocchio was practicing the art of archery with his servant, Adala. Prince Pinocchio, who was very skillful in this profession, bent back his bow. In the blink of an eye, the arrow landed right in the center of the red dot, after which Adala quickly clapped his hands in appraisal. "Adala, why don't you try?" Pinocchio said. "To be a prince's servant, you need to be able to master the art of archery." Just when Adala, who was known for being terrible in shooting an arrow, reluctantly bent back his bow, a strong gust of wind blew in his direction and rotated the turban on his head, making it cover his eyes. As a result, Adala couldn't see and wasn't able to aim at all. Not that he would be able to without the gust of wind anyways. We'll just blame everything on the wind in order not to embarrass him here. And then the arrow flew out of his bow and had disappeared from their sight. At this moment in time, Mama Hoo-Hoo, a sinister sorcerer who lived next door to the palace, was taking a nap in his bedroom. Suddenly, an arrow flew in from the window, knocked over his vase of flowers, and woke him up from his nap. "Who dares to wake me up from my nap?" Mama Hoo-Hoo shouted in rage. "I will make him pay." At that moment, someone knocked on the door of Mama Hoo-Hoo's house. In fact, it was Prince Pinocchio, who saw the direction in which the arrow flew and his servant Adala coming to apologize to the evil sorcerer. "I'm very sorry to disturb you, great sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo," the prince apologized. "My servant and I were practicing archery when he's accidentally shot it in the wrong direction into your house. I hope it has not broken anything. I hereby sincerely apologize for my servant's impertinent behavior, hoping to gain your forgiveness, and I'm ready to do anything in our ability for compensation." "Oh, it's all right." Mama Hoo-Hoo, who didn't believe a single word of the honest prince, and thought that it was actually Pinocchio who shot the arrow, but blamed it on his servant, replied with a wicked grin on his face. "It's all right. Nothing has been broken at all. Pray return to the palace and take no heed of me. Just pretend that nothing has happened." After Pinocchio and Adala left, Mama Hoo-Hoo cursed under his breath. "How dare he wake me up from my nap and lie to me? In order to blame everything on his poor servant, I will make him pay, that haughty prince." Oh no, Pinocchio has angered the ruthless sorcerer. What will Mama Hoo-Hoo do to avenge Pinocchio? That very afternoon, after the incident of the arrow flying into the evil sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo's house, Prince Pinocchio was taking a bath in the palace bathroom whilst wondering about the events of the day. That old fox Mama Hoo-Hoo seemed unusually calm with that evil grin on his face. Prince Pinocchio thought to himself, perhaps he had not forgiven us at all and was planning on some sort of nasty revenge. I had better report the incident to my father so he could take precautions in advance. Suddenly, he felt extremely dizzy. The entire bathroom was swimming around him and there was a deafening buzz in his ears. Oh no, it must be that the water is too hot. Pinocchio thought to himself as he was about to call his servant before he lost all consciousness. After a while, Pinocchio woke up to find himself in a dimly lit room. He could just about make out the shape of a furnace nearby. Abruptly, he noticed Sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo standing over him. "Sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo, what are you doing here? Where have you taken me?" Pinocchio exclaimed as he tried to move, but discovered he couldn't move at all. "You must be pondering why you can't move." Mama Hoo-Hoo laughed sinisterly. "Well, that's because I've turned you into a pile of wood, in punishment of lying to me and waking me up from my nap." Now we are inside the house of a carpenter who will soon return. Do you see the dying fire in the furnace yonder? Well, that's where you'll end up after your return. Why are you doing this to me? I've never wronged you, Prince Pinocchio shouted. You said I lied to you. How so? Well, up to this point, you're still trying to deny it. Looks like you deserved all this, then. Mama Hoo-Hoo snorted in disdain. Don't think that I don't know it was actually you who shot the arrow and blamed it on your poor servant. It was actually my son, you treacherous, irresponsible wretch. Go and be burnt in the fire. So, wait. Adela is your son? Pinocchio exclaimed in astonishment. Yes, he is my illegitimate son, Mama Hoo-Hoo replied. Now that you know my secret, you deserve even more to die. Meanwhile, I will take your place as prince, and once that old and good-for-nothing father of yours die, I will rule the entire kingdom. Shh, I hear the carpenter returning. Be prepared to accept your fate. Mama Hoo-Hoo then disappeared into thin air. Indeed, as the sorcerer had mentioned, Pinocchio soon perceived footsteps, and he could almost hear his own heart thumping like a stampede of buffaloes, except that wood do not have a heart. Without warning, a beautiful girl appeared by the doorway and exclaimed in the most majestic voice one could ever imagine, "Papa, look yonder, it's a pile of wood. We've finally some wood to cook dinner. And after you've used up all our wood supplies to produce your last project, we have went through 3 days without dinner. I will go and prepare immediately." "Pray, do not burn me, young lady. I'm not a piece of wood, but Prince Pinocchio of this country," Pinocchio exclaimed. After hearing the pile of talking wood, the beautiful girl, whom Pinocchio later learned to be called Samira, screamed and ran to her father. "Papa, the pile of wood spoke and claims he is a prince," Samira exclaimed as she ushered her father closer to Pinocchio. "My dear carpenter, pray, do not burn me. I'm no ordinary pile of wood, but your Prince Pinocchio." "Oh, my lord, this is a piece of magical wood that God had given to us," the carpenter Alilang uttered in joy. "God had given me a chance to carve out a talking wood puppet. Yes, that's what I'll carve this time." "Wait, but Papa, what about our dinner?" Samira protested gently. "Oh, forget about dinner. This is more important. Just you wait and see." Alilang responded as he got his carving knife out and started with his favorite job. Not long after, the skillful carpenter produced from the pile of magical wood, which was in fact Prince Pinocchio, a little puppet. "You will now be Samira's younger brother," Alilang said as he was doing some finishing touches. Prince Pinocchio was extremely delighted that he could move once again. After heartily thanking the carpenter, he started bouncing around here and there and sat by the fire to warm himself up. Suddenly, he saw some smoke and was shocked to discover that his feet had started to burn. Alilang immediately dashed to his rescue by pulling him away from the fire and poured a bucket of water on his burning feet. Fortunately, the burning didn't harm Pinocchio. Pinocchio was extremely shocked that he didn't feel anything when his feet started burning. Then he remembered that he was now a puppet and could therefore be unable to feel any pain. The following morning, Pinocchio, Alilang, and Samira went out into the garden to play. Pinocchio discovered that the garden was full of flowers and they had a lot of fun playing hide and seek. "I had never had so much fun since the death of Mama," Samira grinned. Suddenly, Pinocchio picked a beautiful flower from the garden and gave it to Samira. "Oh, Samira, the moment I set eyes upon your sweet little face, my heart cannot help but fly to your side. Will you accept my love and marry me?" "Don't be silly. You can't marry at this age. How long do I have to wait until you can? And besides, remember, now that you're my younger brother, we cannot marry. Moreover, Papa will soon marry me off to someone, which I have been refusing for the past months. But now that he has you to keep you company, I will not be worried about him anymore, and will be contented to settle down and have my own family." "No, Samira, listen, I'll prove to you that I'm not just a little puppet. Please give me the chance of proving that I'm worthy of your love. Prince Pinocchio promised Samira, who seemed unconvinced. Little did they know that, all this time, their actions had been secretly spied on by the wicked sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo, who had immediately begun to form a villainous plan inside his sinister mind. On the following day, something extremely bizarre happened. It was early in the morning. Alila, Samira, and Pinocchio were enjoying breakfast when someone knocked on their door. When Pinocchio got up to answer the door, he was extremely shocked to discover himself, or shall we say, Prince Pinocchio, was standing by the door. The others soon got up in inquiry of the cause of the complete silence, and after Adala has announced that it's the prince, Alilang and Samira immediately bowed down on the ground. Only Pinocchio stood by the door with his mouth wide open. Carpenter Alilang, may I request to have a word with your dear daughter Samira outside? The prince spoke. Pinocchio immediately recognized from his actions that the man standing in front of him was actually the evil sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo, who had turned himself into the form of Prince Pinocchio. No, Samira, it's a trick. Don't believe his words. He's not the real prince. He's a wizard in the prince's form. Pinocchio exclaimed as he dashed forward in order to try and grab the false prince, but was instantly stopped by Alilang.
Don't be silly. What nonsense are you talking about? I forbid you to be rude to the prince.
Alilang scolded angrily. But...
No, I insist that you apologize and go and sit in the corner to think over your conduct.
Alilang said sternly. Pinocchio, seeing that nobody would believe his words until he was able to prove his own identity, reluctantly muttered an apology and went to sit in the corner sulkily.
Your Highness, please do forgive his impertinent behavior. It was all my fault as a father for having not taught him his manners properly. Please do not blame him.
Alilang pleaded. Oh, 'tis nothing, the false prince replied. Why would I blame an ignorant little boy like him? Samira, may we? He said as he gestured Samira to exit the door. The false prince and Samira strolled outside to the garden. The latter didn't even give the prince a second glance, let alone speak the entire trip. After a while, Samira broke the awkward silence. Your Highness, is there something particularly that you wish to communicate with me? If there be none, I'm afraid I will have to excuse myself and return home. I'm feeling a bit cold out here. Suddenly, the false prince kneeled down in front of Samira and said, Oh, my dear Samira, from the moment I set my eyes upon your sweet little face, my heart cannot help but to fly to your side. Will you accept my love and marry me? Pinocchio, who was spying in the distance, had to cover his mouth to stop himself from gasping. Sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo had stolen his very words and had just proposed to Samira. I'm very grateful for your special sentiments towards someone with a status as humble as mine, and I'm not completely unaware of the favors that you're giving me, including the advantages of such a matrimonial alliance. Pinocchio took in a deep breath of air as Samira replied. However, I am afraid that I have no choice but to decline your generosity due to the cumbersome filial responsibilities of a daughter to an aging parent. I'm afraid that if I'm married, my father will be all alone and with no one to keep him company and take care of him. I understand that it makes a woman more attractive and increases her value if she declines a man's proposal the first time, the false prince responded. So there is no need to reply so quickly. I will come back in 3 days' time, and by then I hope that you will have made up your mind. And if your answer is still the same, well, I'm afraid that I won't be able to guarantee that your life will be as peaceful as it was before. Adieu. The evening before the date, which the false prince had promised to return and force Samira to marry him, Pinocchio couldn't sleep at all. He kept pondering about the different ways in which he could help Samira. He sat on a pile of wood and couldn't help but to mutter his thoughts out loud. Alas, how I wish I was Prince Pinocchio again, Pinocchio sighed. I cannot do anything in my current form. I'm just a little puppet. Oh, if only I was my former self again. Suddenly, without warning, emerging from a glittering mist was a fairy-like woman dressed all in blue, with a peacock-shaped hat and a long magic wand in her hand. Hello, Pinocchio, the fairy said in a sing-song voice that sounded as if she had descended from heaven. I am your fairy godmother, and I have heard your wish. And now I'm going to fulfill your dreams and break the sinister curse of the great sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo. So you will become Prince Pinocchio once again. I cannot believe this is all real. I didn't even know the fairy godmothers even existed, Prince Pinocchio exclaimed in astonishment. Well, wait, what was the spell of turning people into sawdust again? Oh, no, I mean, into princes. The fairy began to scratch her head, and without warning, a beard appeared on her face and her voice deepened into that of a man's. Pinocchio had to restrain himself from exclaiming in astonishment as he recognized the voice of the fairy to be that of the evil sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo. In fact, the fairy godmother was Mama Hoo-Hoo in disguise. Enough of your tricks, Mama Hoo-Hoo, Pinocchio shouted in rage. Reveal thyself. What are you doing here? In the blink of an eye, Mama Hoo-Hoo appeared in front of Prince Pinocchio, looking down on him menacingly. Seeing that you have discovered my trick, it will soon perish in the fire yonder. I'll tell you why I'm here. Mama Hoo-Hoo grinned slyly. I'm here to turn you into sawdust, and after throwing you into the furnace, you'll be devoured by the hungry fire. Then I will take your identity as Prince Pinocchio and marry Samira. Afterwards, I'll kill the king, who was taking way too long to die, and the entire kingdom will finally be mine. You can take anything away from me except from my loved ones, because you have no right. Pinocchio screamed in rage as he grabbed hold of Mama Hoo-Hoo's staff and pulled with all his might. They wrestled for a very long time. Abruptly, Pinocchio exclaimed, Samira, come and help me. The Mama Hoo-Hoo immediately turned around his head, only to discover that no one was behind him. Only then did he realize that he had been tricked. Nevertheless, it was all too late. Pinocchio grabbed hold of the opportunity and snatched the staff away from Mama Hoo-Hoo. Abracadabra, turn the wicked wizard into a little doll, Pinocchio exclaimed as he waved the heavy staff. But would Pinocchio's magic actually work? Boom! In the blink of an eye, the evil sorcerer Mama Hoo-Hoo disappeared, and in the place where he stood before lay a little doll. In fact, Pinocchio's spell magically worked. Then he waved the staff again and chanted, Abracadabra, turn me back into Prince Pinocchio. And Pinocchio was no longer the little puppet, but the handsome prince once again. After having performed the necessary magic, Prince Pinocchio decided to rid the world of another evil and threw Mama Hoo-Hoo's staff into the starving fire of the furnace, which was soon burnt into blackened dust. No, my precious staff! Mama Hoo-Hoo in the form of the puppet screamed in agony. Hush, or you'll wake Samira and Alilang, Prince Pinocchio scolded. No, I refuse to be quiet. I shall wake everyone up and let them see what you have done to me. Mama Hoo-Hoo replied as he continued to scream. If you don't quit your screaming, you'll be the next one in the fire, Prince Pinocchio warned menacingly, after which Mama Hoo-Hoo became as quiet as a mouse. Next morning, Samira and Alilang woke up and couldn't find Pinocchio anywhere. Where is that naughty boy? Samira inquired jokingly. Suddenly, Alilang perceived a pile of blackened dust burning inside the fire of the furnace, and white film seemed to pass in front of his eyes. Yes, Pinocchio is dead. He was playing with fire and he burned himself to death. Mama Hoo-Hoo, now in the form of the doll, lied. No, this can't be true. My poor Pinocchio. I don't believe it. No. Samira instantly burst into tears and started sobbing on the floor. Alilan also stood there, motionless, looking into the fire, with the tears slowly rolling down his wrinkled cheek. Suddenly, they heard footsteps. When they looked up, they saw Prince Pinocchio, who went out to get some wood supplies from the forest, standing in front of them. It's you again! Samira screeched in rage as she thought it was the false prince who was Mama Hoo-Hoo in disguise. What are you doing here? You're not welcome here. No matter how many times you come here, my answer will still be the same. Impossible. Do you hear me? I will not marry you, so get lost. Now that Pinocchio is dead, I'll die too. I'd rather burn myself in the fire than marry such a villain like you. Samira then bursted into tears again and was going to plunge into the burning fire when she was stopped by Prince Pinocchio. No, Samira, listen, Pinocchio is not dead. Pinocchio is here. I'm Pinocchio. Prince Pinocchio then went on to explain the entire story right from the beginning when his servant Adala shot the arrow into Mama Hoo-Hoo's house. At first, Samira was not at all convinced and struggled to plunge into the fire again. But then, as the story unveiled itself, Samira finally recognized, through the way he talked and his actions, that the handsome prince standing in front of her was actually the little puppet whom she remembered. Well, Samira, as I have promised you before, I'll prove to you that I am worthy of your love, Pinocchio said after he had finished recounting the story. See? You didn't have to wait that long, did you? Just remember, I'll always be here to protect you. Samira and Pinocchio held hands as the first rays of the morning sun gradually emerged from the distant horizon. The end. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope you like it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel.